good? What's good, YouTube? It's Stormybman, and I am back. Welcome to the Friday night chop session with Stormybman for this Friday, June 10th, 2020. And we are here in episode number 67, where we're calling it If These Crowds Could Talk. And I want to welcome everybody that's out there. We are here coming to the end of another week. These days are flying by. I don't know what's going on, but I wanted to slow down a little bit because I'm getting old, and this fast speed pace of the days flying by, I want to suck in, the ambiance of life. It's going too fast for me. I hope everybody's doing good. Want to say salute to the chat out there. We got Bruce Goals out there, Derek McGee, Nitty G, Boxing Conversations with Reggie Owens. My brothers out there doing double duty, and everybody is saluting each other. I am just overwhelmed with excitement. I don't know, man. It has nothing to do with boxing or anything. I'll break off into it in a little bit. And when you hear what I got to say, you're going to be like, oh, man, really? And wave your hand or something. But I want to welcome my brother in here with me, Reggie Owens. What's going on with you, Reggie? How you doing this evening, bro?
Oh, man, chilling. Glad to be off and glad to be up here to talk some good boxing conversation, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Let me ask you, Reggie, do it seem like these days are flying by to you? Because I could have sworn we just a couple of days ago did a Friday night chop session, bro.
Yeah, they've been rolling, man. They definitely been rolling. And especially with having so much time on our hands, they really going quick when time should go slow.
I know, it's crazy, man. I just kind of want to slow it down a little bit, It's really crazy how it... But I'll tell you something. And when you have work and responsibilities and things like that, that's how it goes by for you. For people who just sitting around maybe not doing much, they may not notice the effect. But I'd be damned if I haven't noticed the effect, man. It's like really true. I put these shows together and this, it's like, man, I got to put some new shows together because it went by so fast. I just slow it down. I'm trying to get my thoughts here together. I was finishing off dinner too just before going live, like greedy folks do. I'm trying to get my meal in before I get the deal in, and I'm sure that many people understand that. So, brother just try to feed his face with some good pasta. I love pasta. I don't know about you guys, but the pasta with that garlic and oil, man, that's good stuff there. So Reggie, I got a question for you, because I know we didn't get a chance to discuss this very much, if at all, really. But I wanted to ask you, did you have any idea or thought about what tonight's title may mean, going into this discussion this evening?
Oh, I think it means he's speaking about these fights without attendees present.
Yeah. I thought that would be a decent little spin on that, because as we go forward and have our boxing discussion, one of the things we've seen that boxing has resumed, but we've been treated to some small bouts. One of the biggest names in this continuation of the sport has been Shakur Stevenson, who didn't disappoint when he came out. But fans are clamoring. They want to see bigger names, and they want to see bigger fights, right off the bat. And I don't blame them. feeding us these Ritz crackers is it's not the made of order. We want to see some real good stuff going down. What are your thoughts on that? On how they've kind of eased the sport back?
It's flat out greed is the reason why they not even that they ease it, that they rushed it back. They rushed this game back, and to doing it without the crowds, it should be a lesson for all three ends. It should be a lesson to these promoters. It should be a lesson. Well, it's a lesson on many ends. Lesson to promoters, TV networks, boxers, and fans as well. And it just shows how important the meshing and respect to each other is, because what they putting on, that shit is whack, man. I mean, I enjoy it because I like fighting. Who doesn't enjoy a fight? But without that energy, there's something that you gain from the presence of a crowd, the presence of fan energy. I don't know. I'm just getting a weird vibe from watching this, and it just seems like the fighters aren't elevating themselves. They don't have this additional factor that helps to push and motivate them. Some people may pick themselves up when they hear a crowd booing them, and it may motivate them to go out there and kick the fan favorite's ass. Or you hearing your crowd go off, and now it may energize you to give it a little bit extra to go out there and finish this guy, or it just adds more to it. And also, not just the crowds not being there. I don't think a lot of these fighters got proper training. I don't think a lot of them put in proper time in camp, and it's about the check. That's all they're in there for, is for the check. And it also should teach fighters of why you need to make sure you get demands to where these promoters are doing right by you, and ensuring that you got yourself covered, and teaching these other fighters to be more responsible, be more appreciative of fans is what they'll learn from that. From fans, learning not to be so casual about shit. Learn to get what you want, and as many lessons learned from this.
Yeah, and I see what you're saying about that. The monkey hustle they pulling with this, snatch and grab. The people are not that stupid. They may be impatient, but they're not that stupid. And I think they can hurt the sport even more so than the hiatus, the break that we've had, by doing this and continuing and giving us like a couple of cards a week, 2-3 cards a week with these, undervalued offerings. I don't like it, and I would like to see someone step up, and the one to step up is going to have to be one of the name fighters, huh? It's got to be one of those guys. If you going to be a part of what's going on and to be successful going forward, you have to lead the charge. You have to be a person of notoriety and respect that the fans are like, okay, this is who I want to see. That's what I want to, see go down. And that people will follow. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, most definitely it will. But I also think for the big names to get out there, these promoters can't talk about undercutting their money neither.
Right. And you know that's, undercutting the money. The money is always there for the fighters. The promoters and managers and everything, all those guys, they take too much of a cut anyway. It's time that they get cut, huh? Maybe even cut out the picture. That's what really needs to happen. I want to welcome some more people into the show. We got D-Style Boxing is out there. He says, what's up, guys? Nate the Great is out there, says salute to Stormy in the chat. Underrated Darkness has joined us. D Hodges and Kurt Sugar is out there. Bruce Goals is out there. BFTV Boxing is out there. He says, salute Stormy. And the bro Reggie, salute to you, BFTB. Good to see you out there, bro. And who else we got? We got a few more people just saluting each other. Gil Coles, the man with the flute. Man, Gil been off the scene for a minute, Reggie. Let's welcome Gil Coles back with a emoji with a flute or something. Because, that's the brother that's the Keith Thurman man. So, good to see Gil Coles back, man. But yeah, when they decide to rush this thing back, which is what I believe they're doing also, Reggie, I totally agree with you. The least you could do is offer up something worth tuning into. Even if that was like a 2-fight card or a double header, as you say in baseball or something, something like that. But man, don't be bringing us all these guys that don't nobody know who they are and never heard of these guys or just journeymen and stuff like that. We don't want to see that. We don't want to see that. We want to see some, excuse me, mixing of the fighters in the divisions. And I don't know what would be the great Kickstarter to kind of drive that point home outside of just not tuning in, because we're on like ESPN, or if it's ESPN Plus or some kind of streaming app or something, that you just don't tune in until they decide to drop some names that you would like to see mixing it up. Did you have any thoughts in regards to that? How we can assist in getting that turned around?
Bob, when they first introduced this one to come back during the shutdowns with no crowds, Bob Arum should have introduced a tournament, especially with these, fighters who people barely know. They should have introduced all these fighters into a straight up tournament and have them to battle it out, build their names up that way, and he would have found success. Maybe throw a name at the main part of the fight, but I think a tournament style, giving more of a story, quick stories on who these fighters are, building them up, and just ran it that way. And you doing a tournament twice a week? They would have hit gold with that. And right now they're giving fans a little bit of what they want, but they're missing a mark, especially with at some point you can't keep giving fans this caliber of fights. That tournament thing would have been essential to Top Rank's plan getting back. That's why Al Heyman ain't got a trip. Al Heyman is in no rush to getting back, but if Al Heyman comes back, he should run a tournament since Bob Arum didn't do it.
Yeah, absolutely. A tournament would be a great idea. Didn't even think of that, which was an excellent point there, because with the design of a tournament, you actually give the fighters competing incentive. They know that there's something down the line. It's like these cards that we've seen thus far, by them not being tournaments, guess what? A guy showed up for what? A payday. But a tournament gives you an opportunity at exposure. It gives you an opportunity at advancing the career. It gives you an opportunity to feel that heat of challenge. Because when someone is in a tournament, you win or you go home, that kind of thing, sudden death. People fight, people fight for their lives. And it's incentive laden. So I agree with that, man, 100%. That's a great idea. I want to take a moment to welcome D-Style Boxing to the panel this evening. D-Style has been out there doing some good stuff. I saw D-Style's stream with G-Funky earlier, where they were talking about the 5 best boxing films. So I want to say salute, D-Style. Welcome to you, bro. And what do you think about this evening's topic, where we say if these crowds could talk?
What's going on? If the crowds could talk, they'd be saying, boo. Who the hell are those guys? You know what I mean? But what's going on, guys? First of all, thank you for having me on. I appreciate the invite. Check it out. Look, I didn't even have high expectations, and I'm still disappointed overall. And I just don't understand why they have to have 2 shows a week. Just narrow it down to 1 and just give us good fights. It's really not that complicated. If for whatever reason the big names, you're having a hard time getting them to agree to fight each other, then okay, put the C-level and B-level guys, but put them in good fights. All the best fights have been the ones that had the best matchmaking. But, you know, when you put a prospect up against an MMA guy that's 0-1, you know, I don't know if you guys saw a dude with a mullet, right? The guy would throw a punch, he'd be squared up every time. They kept talking about how he was a wrestler and he's working on his MMA and, he's working on his hands. And are we really putting on boxing on ESPN like that? And then you got that Perez and Torres guy, right? Looking like they're fighting over the last piece of steak in a buffet. Like, do we really need to be seeing that on ESPN? I'm not saying that there's no room for journeymen to be fighting, but not on nationally televised, you know, fights, you know, or nationally televised events. There's no need for that. What are we doing? Is that if someone's, you know, if you're trying to create new fans and they see that, you know what they're going to say? They're going to say, wow, is that, man, I remember when they had Ali and Tyson, and this is what they got now? This is it? These are the heavyweights of today? You have to remember that a good percentage of the audience that tunes in on an ESPN is going to be someone who has not watched boxing in years. At least 10% of that audience. So that first impression is extremely important. You just got to hope they didn't tune in during that. But when you do good matchmaking, look that DeMarco fight against Santiago was a good fight. Santiago ain't going nowhere in the future, that's for sure. We learned a lot about him. We learned he's not going to be a threat to any welterweight champion. However, it was still a good fight, though. I could deal with that fight. You know, the Greer fight with the Filipino cat, his name escapes me at the moment. You know, I think that was a pretty decent fight, too. You know, but just it's about good matchmaking. And we're seeing way too many showcases, way too many prospects fighting part-time MMA fighters and all this other nonsense, man. That's just my thoughts. They're going to bring back Berchelt. And Berchelt and Valdez were already going to fight each other. Oscar Valdez, that is. They're already going to fight. And then this quarantine happens. You would think, hey, guys, you're going to fight each other when we come back, right? No, we got a better idea. Let's put Berchelt in the ring, all right? This is the matchmakers for you. We're going to bring back arguably the best 130-pound fighter in the world against a dude that's 3-3 with 1 no contest and coming off a TKO loss. That makes all the sense in the world. Man, people are going to come in droves. And people can't wait to get out of work to watch that fight. Those are my thoughts so far.
No, it is. You made some great points there. Reggie, did you have something to say about what D-Style had to offer there?
No, I was starting to hop on BoxRec to check the opponent's record because I think that's bullshit. If Burchak is fighting someone with what you said the record was 3-3, and I think
his last 7 fights. His last 7 fights, he's 3-3, 1 no contest, and he's coming off a TKO loss.
Yeah, they put on too many showcase type fights for these guys rather than putting them into competitive fights because still when you get these things are being televised, you still got to be able to pull in ratings, and you should be able to gain those ratings. But when fans are coming week after week and they're seeing fights like that, like you brought up the Torres versus Perez, 2 big heavyweights, I thought I was gonna see a knockout. You just watch one dude trying to lay on the other guy. Both fighters just looking sluggish, looking way out of it. That shit turned into a slop fest. You're just not seeing what you expect to see with these guys. And the best thing they put on was the upset with Greer versus Planea. But other than that, and Shakur put on a pretty good performance as well. He put on a flawless performance. But other than that, you ain't been getting it, and they got to stop trying to showcase these guys to trying to look good, and it's just not turning out that way. People want to see other stuff on these cards, and right now Bob Arum is dropping the ball on this shit, dropping it in a major way.
Yo, so this guy's called Elazar Valenzuela, right? He is 21-13, and like I mentioned, he's 3-3 with 1 no contest in his last 7 fights, coming off a TKO loss. He was knocked out in the 2nd round in his last fight, and they're gonna put him in there with Burchell. It's a waste of time to me. It's a waste of time. And Oscar Valdez is fighting just 2-3 weeks later against some other nobody. I thought they were going to make that fight happen. That's the fight they should have made, but hey, it is what it is.
Man, this is despicable. See, I wasn't looking into those records like that and everything. But I'm sorry, man. That's despicable. What the hell? You might as well be fighting a corpse.
Yeah, look, if Burchell wants to have a fight like that and it's not televised and it's just like a stay busy fight, okay, fine. But this is what they're going to put on ESPN, you know.
Yeah, Curtis says maybe it's me, but damn, these top ranked cars remind me of high school gym fights. Maybe the high schoolers could whoop these guys too. You know, it's ridiculous, man. And by the way, D-Style, he says the Filipino fighter is Michael Plantia. That's his name.
But yeah, Magic Mike, gotcha.
Yeah, so I don't know, man. It's like we've really fallen off. We've fallen off big time. I don't even have nothing to say about it. You know, it's just why do we give any acknowledgement to that stuff? I noticed that last week, you know, in preparing for one of the shows that I do in the evening, I think it was Thursday when we do the Three Wise Men, somebody had asked me, Stormy, are you going to watch the fights? And I was like, no. That was not even something to consider. It's like, why? You know, shouldn't it be someone worth talking about, worth looking at and everything? And if people are tuning into this, they're really going to continue to shovel that down your throat. And I don't see myself tuning in anytime soon, really, if they're going to continue this. And that Burchell opponent that you read off his stats, I mean, come on, man. You know, one of the brothers in the chat might be able to offer a little more up than that. You know what I'm saying? Not being a professional fighter. Shoot, that's ridiculous.
Yo, if they're paying dudes, just pay me. Shit, I'll go.
Yeah, you know.
I'll jump in the ring.
Yeah. Because, you know, TV fights will bring you some money. You know, it'll be a nice, you know, if they talking about giving you $500, they're like, man, they could go suck it with that, because you know it could be much more than that, man. But it's ridiculous. BFTB said, I would have figured this the time to capture the public's eye with big fights. Absolutely. That's what I was talking about a few months ago when I said if they really wanted to set the sport right, they'd come back with a big fight right away, right off the bat. Give those guys some time, weeks to train, and put them in there and let them get busy. But this thing that they're doing, they've even peeled the onion back to what it was before the sport went on a hiatus. This is ridiculous, man. So I don't know. I don't know. But let's move on to some more of the same about if these crowds could talk, where we see some of these fighters, man, they have really gone to social media and started talking crap. And some of the names are very familiar, but I wanted to ask the panel here, what do you guys think about, first and foremost, Terrence Bud Crawford deciding to give interviews and allow someone to hear him talk some stuff? And what do you think about what he had to say? Reggie, are you aware of what Crawford did earlier this week in his conversation that he offered up?
No. If you can brief me, I know it's the one with Brian Custer. I didn't get to fully watch it.
Yeah, one of the things that he spoke about was, wanting, the respect and recognition in the sport, and he feels like he doesn't. If it takes to the end of the year, he won't come back. Especially if it involves taking a pay cut and things like that. Of course, and that if they brought him back, they would definitely be putting him in against not the guys you want to see him fight, but someone that they went and dug out from behind a cave somewhere and put some boot gloves and trunks on. So it's like he's talking like, he's King Doodoo out there, and the threat of, well, I'll just sit the rest of the year out if they don't give me, something that I feel I'm worth and this and that, and against taking a pay cut. But I'll tell you something. At the age that he is, and what I was saying opening this show about these days flying by, hey, he'll be Willie Whiskers before you know it. And time will pass him by. And there's a few hot young prospects out there that may take him to task as he's aging, sitting on the sidelines. So that's basically, what it was with him. And again, more of the same, the double talk and everything. When it comes down to Spence and, Porter and the other guys, he's not showing any light, toward being interested in facing those guys.
Yeah, I don't know about Bud, man, but I think he's choosing the right moments to finally come out and talk. I think that's one good side for him. But matter of fact, that's just one interview. We got to start seeing him follow up. If he says he wants more recognition and all that stuff, then he has to make himself more accessible vocally. And unless he changes that, he's just going to always be a guy who kinds of faces a lot of criticism with fans because they can't relate to him, and he don't want to retire and wish he could have changed something, because that's going to be his ultimate regret. But I think he needs to continue on with doing more of these interviews, speaking up, and then also speaking about getting these fights underway. He definitely got to get these fights underway because, like you said, as time moves on, you got these younger guys coming up, campaigning and moving up fast. They're going to end up knocking him up off the spot, and it'll be a bad thing. But he's still accomplished what he accomplished. But people want to see what Bud is going to achieve at this 147 mark. I won't take nothing from him, but do want to see since he's at 147, you want to see him against the top players in this division. And I think he needs to hurry up and make a move on it. But with this Corona thing, it didn't really parked everything for these guys.
D-Style, what do you got on it?
Well, look, man. Let me read this Bud quote really quick. I want to fight all the big names at the end of the day. They can't avoid me forever. At the end of the day, they're going to have to see Terrence Crawford. Look, man, I just don't believe that guys are, quote unquote, avoiding Terrence Crawford. All right. This is a situation of circumstance. Terrence Crawford, in my opinion, made a mistake by re-signing with Top Rank. If he wanted to keep working with Top Rank, he could have done so. Just work with them on a fight-by-fight basis, but leave yourself kind of open. I think that's what fighters should do once their names are established. There really is no reason to lock yourself in with one promoter in a sport where there's dozens of promoters working within the sport. It makes no sense. It's not like UFC where you can just sign with the UFC and you're good, or you go to the NFL and you're part of a team and you're in that league and that's it. Boxing doesn't work that way, so it's never made sense to me why you're going to lock yourself in that way. But let's put that aside. What's done is done. Terrence Crawford and this is just my opinion, he should stop putting barriers between him and the guys over in the PBC side. So it's just unreasonable. It just is. It's unreasonable for him to be demanding 50-50 in an Errol Spence fight. And anyone who's objective, all right, would realize that. Because it's not like Terrence Crawford is a pay-per-view star or something like that. The Errol Spence has had two relatively, pretty successful boxing pay-per-view events. So Terrence Crawford, not so much. His pay-per-view, drawing power has not been very impressive whatsoever. So, and you could say, oh, it's because of this, it's because of that. It doesn't matter why it is. Your handlers have a lot to do with that. You're the one that signed with Top Rank. So that aside, I think the barriers have to stop. And there's a little bit of blame to go on both sides. I get that. But if Terrence Crawford, like he says here, if he really wants these fights, I need to ask, what are you doing to make these fights happen? You can fight Ugas. That's a very makeable fight. There's fights. You could fight Porter. That's a very makeable fight. Even a Cal Brook is there. And people could say what they want. I mean, it's a better fight than Mean Machine. So there's fights that Terrence Crawford could make. I just don't, the way he frames it, he's kind of framing it like everyone's just flat out avoiding him. They're trying to make this, I've seen revisionist history, but this is like revisionist current, that's going on right now. And this revisionist current day thing, I'm just not buying it. And I strongly believe Terrence Crawford is the best welterweight in the world in terms of talent, but not accomplishment. And at the end of the day, when you retire and you leave the sport, your accomplishments is what people are going to look at. So he may have to give in a little bit when it comes to what he's asking for in terms of money to make some of these fights happen, in my opinion. He's the one that kind of put himself, in this corner by signing with Top Rank. And right now, Top Rank doesn't have anybody. But I don't want to be the guy that gives everybody the bad news. But I'm pretty sure they're going to feed Santillan to Crawford. I think that's the route they're going. All this, Bob Arum talking about doing the Pacquiao fight. If they can make it happen, great. But I'm telling you right now, Santillan Crawford. I hope you guys are excited. I think that's a fight that's coming.
Well, one of the things during that interview with Brian Custer's Last Stand podcast, when he was asked about who he would like to see in the ring, he was quoted as saying, all of them, every last one of them is a makeable fight, speaking about Ugas, Porter, and Thurman being options. Then he quote says, I don't see anything standing in the way of any of those three fighters that called me out. I feel like Keith Thurman would have been the biggest fight, then Sean Porter, and then Ugas. All three of them are great fighters. I can't look over any of them. All three of them are great fights to be made. All four if I put Kell Brook in, said Crawford. What do you think about that, Reggie? Reggie, you there?
Repeat that. Yeah. My kids is grabbing me. Repeat that one more time.
No, I was asking, what do you think about those quotes that Crawford left with Brian Custer on his podcast about speaking of Ugas, Porter, and Thurman being options, and he don't see anything standing in the way of it, and he says all four if he adds Kell Brook's name to the mix. He doesn't see any problem making those fights, and that he think that he and Thurman would be the biggest of those fights, and then Sean Porter, then Ugas.
He need to hurry up and make it happen, but I don't know where the hell he got Keith Thurman at. But he definitely needs to just go ahead and make it happen. That's my thoughts on it.
Well,
don't talk
the thing about that was, like, supposedly, for people who have called him out. Now, recently Thurman did start talking some mess on social media, And Crawford was one of the names that he said something about. But we know that Keith Thurman now is on the outside looking in, and he's looking to get an opportunity now. It's like, but when he had the deck in his hand, he didn't do anything with it on purpose. So, but I was just asking you your thoughts on what Crawford had to offer up regarding that, and saying that it's not hard. It shouldn't be a hard thing to make.
Yeah, since he's saying that, I just want to see it get done. If that's the way he's talking about it, get it done.
Yeah. How about you, D-Style? What are your thoughts on that?
Look, I mean, every fighter, says the right things on an interview. You know what I mean? But I'm at a point when it comes to this boxing thing. I'm at a point where I'm tired of hearing guys talk about, about shit. So if it's not a problem, then okay, then make it happen. Obviously it's a problem if you keep talking about it. Like there's a reason none of these fights have been signed. From my understanding, there hasn't even been any serious talks about any of those fights. Bob Arum was mostly talking about the Manny Pacquiao fight, and I could see why he would want to do that one. But hey, if there's no problem making these fights happen, then let's make it happen. I just don't see what the point of saying there's no problem making it if there obviously has been a problem. So what I'll say is, prove me wrong. I believe there is a problem. Okay, making these fights happen. So prove me wrong, and go and make them happen. That's what I'll say to that.
Has there ever been a time in recent memory, and I know we're in the thick of social media now, but where guys have done so much freaking talking and no action, man? This is like becoming absurd, because I don't even like wasting the time talking about these things, quotes, and what a guy tweeted and what a guy posted to his Instagram and all of that foolishness. Man, I'm sick of that. I knew boxing to be guys be like, hey, sign the contract, let's get busy. You know what I mean? It's like, but this thing, it's a whole new entity. And I think the promoters take advantage of this too, because they think in some kind of weird, sadistic way that that's some kind of like self-promotion or something that they don't have to do. But it's not really. It speaks more about the fact that the guys enjoy having that blockade in front of them. It's like, and I know Reggie and D-Style, you guys both know this because we've talked about it and laughed about it in the past. It's like those dogs fighting, barking at each other outside that fence, right? And where there's an opening in the partition of the fence, but they're not going over there by that opening. They're staying behind the wall between them. And it's like, that's so foolish, man. But this is exactly what that is, posturing.
Well, what happened is showing up at the fight. What happened to that? What happened to when you wanted to fight somebody and they win a fight and you're right there in the ring, or you're just right there in first row? What happened to that? What happened is showing up at the post-fight press conferences. That's what fighters used to do when they really wanted to fight. They wouldn't tweet about it. And I understand these platforms weren't available back then. But it's not like this is impossible to do nowadays. Like, I get that right now we're in quarantine, but Spence had a bunch of fights Crawford could have showed up to, a bunch of these other guys that he could have showed up to. So at the end of the day, and this goes for all these fighters, you have Ryan Garcia out here talking about how he wants to fight, but he agrees to a deal, and then, he tries to hold it, and, he's trying to hold the zone ransom now. He wants more money now, after he agreed for that amount of money already. This is crazy. I have no idea what's wrong with these fighters nowadays. Fighters in the past would love to be a prospect, fight a nobody for $200,000, man. right? So all these fighters in the past paved the way, for a pretty spoiled generation, in my opinion.
You know what's funny about I just want to add about the showing up to the fights. A lot of these fighters nowadays, and they've probably done in the past, where they'll show up to a fight only to see if that fighter lost a step, or hoping they favor the fighter they prefer to go in there with. And when the fighter doesn't look like he lost a step, or he may look good in the fight, they just there incognito to only be in attendance, as if they were never there to call anyone out. And it's a sad thing when you see that. A lot of them are becoming social media prima donnas, and some of them go to fights, but they don't step to the ring because they look and see, man, this fighter got something that I still want to avoid. I'm waiting. A lot of people waiting shit out in hopes that someone loses a step or something.
Listen, man, I remember back in February of 1990, Evander Holyfield was ranked number 1 in all 3 sanctioning bodies at the time, IBF, WBA, WBC, as the number 1 contender for Mike Tyson's heavyweight title. And he flew all the way to Tokyo for 49-1 underdog Buster Douglas challenge of Mike Tyson's title of undisputed heavyweight champion, with a deal on the table with Mike. I think it was anywhere between 8 to 12 million that Holyfield was going to be guaranteed, right? He was right there ringside the night that Mike Tyson got his butt whooped for the first time. And he sat there nervously. You could see Evander kind of like rustling in his seat every time the camera was on him, because he wanted Mike to win the fight because of the guarantee that he had for him. And it's like when Buster got knocked, when Buster knocked Mike out and they interviewed him, he gave Buster credit and everything, but boy, was he disappointed. And you could see the disappointment in his face. It was like, wow. But, he didn't have to go all the way to Tokyo to watch the man fight. But that shows like a different time and a different era where these guys, they attended one another's fights. They were in the audience. They were present ringside and ready to do what they could to stoke the flames of a future fight, and everything. These men today, they don't have any gumption to do something like that. Even like we can recall, Anthony Joshua barring Deontay Wilder from the ring and possibly the stadium when he talked about possibly coming over there to watch a Joshua fight and maybe sit there with the ringside announcers and help call the fight or something like that. And he was going to be barred from the ring and all of that. Who does that? You're a heavyweight champion of the world, and you don't even want someone who you could potentially be fighting down the line to come to the arena, to come ringside, let alone get in the ring so fans can see you guys face off and be like talking about, I'm going to whoop you, I'm better than you, and this and that. He just eliminated. What kind of man does that in this sport that we say that we love and covet and support? How can you get behind these guys?
Yeah, this is the social media era. That's where we're at right now, and it's easy to say the things you want to say over the internet. There was a time when guys that couldn't fight were called, keyboard warriors, but now a lot of these boxers are keyboard warriors now. That's the times where we're at now, and they're clowning each other now over things that, like, fans, me as a boxing fan, I don't care about. I want to see you guys fight and see who's the better fighter. You see, there was a time where fighters would talk about, I'm going to whoop your ass, I'm going to knock you out in the 4th round, whatever it was. If I get in the ring with you, I'm going to beat your ass, whatever it is. Now, you have guys clowning each other by, what type of cars they had got. And, I already got a Ferrari, you don't. And, I got a better guarantee than you. And I get paid more money. I got more sponsors than you. And all this other stuff that honestly, nobody cares about. Like, I'm glad you got your money. but nobody gives a shit. Can you get in the damn ring? Can you fight? And look, in this time right now, I get that the promoters, Top Rank especially, definitely deserve a lot of blame. So does the network and ESPN, right? They do, 100%. However, the fighters themselves deserve a lot of blame too, right? I mean, you got promoters right now trying to pull teeth to get these guys to agree to fight each other. Look, these guys cannot be forced to fight. They have to sign the dotted line. They have to be willing to do it. And we have too many fighters now that, man, they're asking for arms and legs to get in the ring with certain guys. If they think a guy could beat them and take their O or embarrass them, like they really want to get compensated for it. You know, almost like insurance money. Like they want an insurance policy level money, right, to get in the ring with certain guys. And it's honestly getting ridiculous. Honestly, it is. So it's difficult to get these guys in the ring without them asking for this ridiculous amount of money nowadays. And obviously the promoters, networks they're to blame for a lot of this. They are. But man, I'm not going to let the fighters off the hook though. Right? The fighters themselves have been making it very difficult to make fights happen. All right? Extremely difficult. So that's why, like, they'll sign to fight a C-level dude, and that's why you get a lot of these fights on TV. Because they'll agree to that, but you think that ESPN's going to pay them like $8 million or something to fight another A-level fighter? Well, they don't got that in the budget. Not with the ratings boxing's getting, but this is the type of money these guys want to get in the ring with somebody at their level. So this is the predicament we're in.
And they're truly practicing social distancing from one another. That's the other part of it. Huh? You could actually hang that on them. This is the era of social distancing in boxing, because these guys have no intention of smoking off against each other, man. This is ridiculous. What do you have to add on that, Reggie?
Yeah, no, D-Style laid it out perfectly. He laid it out perfect.
Yeah. So, you know, and it's more the same with the other names. I mean, we've got Broner. You know, his name keeps getting bantied about out there, you know, with people, you know, wanting, you know, to have smoke with him. But he's already priced himself out of a fight by saying he wants $10 million to come back. Now, some people think AB is worth $10 million to bring him back to the ring. But seeing that he's, you know, dropped a couple of decisions and everything in his last couple of fights, although he has a following and stuff like that, and he puts butts in the seat, people who pay the checks, they don't feel like that's a great return for them, because, you know, and his outside the ring antics and problems have kind of put a cloud over things. But personally, why are guys calling on him when he haven't fought and he don't really look like he want to fight? He want to be a rapper now and everything. So it's like, why are you even talking about him? Talk about guys who are right there in front of you. You know, why isn't Prograde talking about Josh Taylor? Huh? Why isn't he saying, hey, I want that back. I want a return match. I'm ready. You know, why isn't he saying things like that? The Maurice Hooker deal is probably dead in the water because Hooker actually wants him to come up to a different weight now. It was originally going to be a catch weight of like 143 or something like that, 143.5 or something. Now he's talking about 147, Hooker is. And, of course, Prograde doesn't want to go up there. So it's like, it looks like that deal may be dead in the water. So, I mean, what do you have on that, Reggie?
Man, the thing I want to with AB real quick for the Hooker thing is, and this is where, like what D-Sal was saying, it's the promoters who have fought for this as well, because you hear where promoters speak of where fighters complain about money, and then they speak about their ability to draw in crowds. Now that AB has kind of been able to do a thing of, he's kind of an attraction to the sport. Some of the antics he pulls off is kind of entertaining, to where it's not even about being competitive anymore. It's all about kind of almost turning into a whole circus about how many people you can attract to getting inside of an arena or whatnot, versus making the sport what it's supposed to be built around, and that's structuring it around being highly competitive. Now, if promoters would did a better job, and this ain't just a new thing, but decades, they would have did a better job of just marketing champions, marketing those who have a belt. Then they'll put more emphasis on people really doing a greater deed for the sport and for their damn selves. But it's almost to where you get people who are champions or top level cats who don't have a profile. They're looking to attract somebody to the ring who has popularity behind them, just so people can see them, and hopefully they go in here and style on these guys. That thing with Hooker and I believe he's speaking on Progress, I hear that thing fell apart because of money as well. And I don't know if it's due to Eddie Hearn trying to undercut the fighters because of what's going on, and the fighters guess coming to an agreement like they ain't taking a fight based on what he's trying to pay them out.
I think that was the weight. I think Hooker didn't want to go down another pound or something like that.
Oh, that could be it too. But I was hearing something about money as well, that they didn't like what Eddie was trying. I think Eddie was trying to get them to take a cut or something like that.
If I can add this, Michael Jordan, has said this for a while, okay, and he says that a lot of basketball players nowadays, start to get paid off of potential. They start getting these big contracts. They can start getting these big sponsorships before they've even done anything, based off potential, off the eye test, off what they think these guys might accomplish. They want to lock them in now, just in case. And I feel like this is happening in boxing right now, right? A lot of these guys are getting paid off of potential. Like Ryan Garcia might be a big star. He might be the next. I don't think he is, but this is what they're saying. He might be the next Oscar De La Hoya. I don't see it, but okay. Well, how about he becomes the next Oscar De La Hoya, and then he, just like Oscar De La Hoya did, he could start making De La Hoya type money. De La Hoya wasn't making De La Hoya money before he actually became, the pay-per-view attraction he became. So, this whole I support fighters and give them all the money, and we cannot give them money that doesn't exist, guys. We can't get money out of thin air and just give it to these guys. It's a business at the end of the day, and we got like everybody says, right? Boxing's a business. Well, it is. Well, people got to make money. These networks have to make money. These promoters have to make money. That's why they're doing it. That's why anyone and anything is involved in anything regarding sports or business. So we can't be paying these guys based off just their potential. They have to first earn it. Can you first do something? Can you become a world champion first before you start demanding crazy amount of money? Can you actually do something in the sport? Can you accomplish something, please? Now, in terms of AB, here's what I'll say. I kind of get what he's doing. It's kind of like the going to buy a new car and you start to negotiate. You kind of go as far down as possible because they're going to start as high as possible and you meet somewhere in the middle. So if he's asking for $10 million, they might offer him 5 or 6 or 7. So instead of offering him 1 or 2. So I get what he's doing, and I do believe it's more than likely going to work for him and good for him. AB, I don't know about $10 million. It just depends on the opponent, to be honest with you. But he is a name. He would attract attention. He will get far better numbers than we're seeing on ESPN right now. Okay, for sure. I would even say he would get better numbers than you're seeing in the UFC right now. All right. So is he worth, I don't know about the $10 million. It would depend on the opponent, of course. But is he worth millions? He is, yes. All right. And the one thing I liked about what Progress did say was, can somebody just pay this dude $10 million so I could beat his ass? right? He didn't start talking about the purse and who makes more, and he just said, "I want to beat your ass," is what he said. All right. So I did like that response, but that's what I'll say about that.
So did I, D-Style, because that sounds like a fighter, right? A fighter, what we pay to see when we do pay to see matches. However, my thing is, when it comes down to Prograis, why isn't he talking about getting back at Josh Taylor? Be a fighter, right? It's like, what's up with that? There's something to be said about that. Remember, I've talked about this numerous times. These men today don't even want to rematch. If they win a fight, they want to get away scot-free with that victory. Sometimes you could just catch a guy on a bad night. Sometimes you could catch a person, that's not their best or whatever. But the thing about it is, I've always maintained this. Rematches can help sustain the sport, because if the fight was good the first time, an upset the first time, or it gave a back and forth that it came to an ending that you didn't expect, or a controversial decision, you run it back. People will tune in. People will say, I think he's going to get him this time. I'm going with this guy. I'm going with that guy. It helps sustain the sport. Remember, the lull in the sport is not just from the guys not fighting, but it's from the guys who have fought that they don't want to rematch. They don't want to give someone another opportunity, but they say that it's a brotherhood or whatever, but these brothers don't want to give the other brother another shot or another payday. They're supposed to be feeding their families, right? So what the hell is the problem here? They spend more time on social media posting and tweeting and all of that stuff instead of even training and getting ready for the next guy. Remember Jarrett Hurd? All those excuses that he made for not facing Charlo when they both had belts, and he was given all the excuses in the world, and then he loses, and then it's like, a good fight that could have been made is now gone by the wayside by a fight that people didn't know that was going to be as good going in, meaning Hurd and what's his name, J-Rock, and it flips everything on its end. And now those guys who were undefeated, everybody's got a loss now. And they didn't even fight the fights we wanted to see, and they still lost. It's crazy. You look at the welterweights right now. Earl has already had a bad car accident that he's fortunate to be alive, let alone talk about fighting again. Okay? And so, and we're seeing this, and we didn't see that accident on the horizon, but hell, something can happen to one of the other guys. And it's like, then that's another good fight gone out the window. And these guys are just wasting time. Months are rolling by. You heard me say at the beginning of this show, I'm like, man, days are rolling by. I could feel what's happening. It's like, wow, I want time to slow down a little bit. These guys are getting older. And they're not like 23, 24, 25 years old. These guys are 30, 31, 32. What the hell? What do you got on that, Reggie?
Yeah, man, I don't get it, man. I can't go too much on what you said is I'm at 100%, but I don't, man, that's the type of issue that bugs me. Like, you bring up Taylor Prograis, why he wouldn't call him out, man. I think the dude is worried about that fight took something from Prograis, and I think that's probably a reason why he avoids calling for the rematch in that fight. I just don't get it, man. I don't get it, OG. It bugs the hell out of me, man. I don't understand. I don't understand the current age, but I think what it is these guys are afraid. They're afraid of risk, is what it is. They're afraid of risk, and I think that's really what it boils down to. To me, these guys gain the respect, because legacy is something people never forget. And just because you're an undefeated fighter doesn't mean you're going to be remembered in time when you ain't really produce shit for fans to remember. And that's what a lot of them don't think about. And I don't know, that's the only thing I can come up with. But I definitely agree with what you were stating.
Well, this is the other aspect of what you just notated. The fact that, like, these guys think that, something is a risk, right? What they don't realize, Reggie, and this is how you know they're training the trainers, and it goes back to this. This is how you know the trainers are shit today. Because all that work you do in the gym, your body is taking damage. Okay? Every punch to the head counts. Okay? That's not even live action. That's training and preparation. And everybody knows that these guys today get woefully out of shape and have to have fat camps and shit to get themselves ready for a fight. So they're sustaining damage there. Okay? It's a risk. Then when they have an actual match that they're contractually obligated to go through with, there's a risk there. Even if you're fighting someone on paper that is supposed to be a guy that you can get by tonight, it's supposed to be a good payday. There have been upsets in boxing. One guy decides one night that he's not going to be starving no more, and he come and take it all away from you. A la J-Rock and Jared Hurd. Here Hurd was hometown guy, doing all his stuff and visiting his people and this and that or whatever, and he got knocked down, he got beaten up, he lost his title and everything. Was it not a risk? Of course it was a risk. But they didn't think that that was going to happen, did they? They thought that he was going to go in there and overpower J-Rock and be stronger than him and everything, like they had been doing with other people. But see, here we go. When you talk about the risk, every time you freaking get in that ring, you could be at risk. You could be going into your 3rd week of sparring in a 12-week camp and get bleeding on the brain, okay, from a sparring session. Career could suddenly be in jeopardy or even over. So it's a risk. So why not get your ass in the best shape you can, be primed, be honed, be ready to go out there so you can be focused on the task at hand. This is all we ask. And you do that by fighting people who give you an edge. I got to get ready for this guy. This guy can give me a challenge. This guy can possibly even beat me. It's a 50-50 fight. This is what we want to see. We don't want to see you going in there rolling over former sparring partners and guys that they brought into camp just to give you a little work or something like that. Guys with the 4 or 5 losses in their last fights or whatever. We don't want to see that crap. But it's like, it's always a risk when you step into that ring. Always. Whether you're sparring in camp or whether you are headed to the night that the lights are on. D-Style, what do you have on that, bro?
Look, I'm just getting sick and tired of hearing about, well, if you want me to take this risk or if you want me to take this fight, you got to give me this much more. And, you know what I mean? Oh, we got to marinate this fight with it. You know, like, I'm just tired of hearing it. You know, I'm tired of the marinating. I'm tired of the guys requesting like an insurance policy in case they lose and shit. You know what I mean? Like, I'm tired of guys just, you know, using the excuse that, you know, that they deserve more money. Bro, it's called pricing yourself out. That's what it's called. That's what it's called. I am just simply sick and tired of it. I don't want to hear it anymore. Get in there. Okay, fight the fights. If you lose, you lose. You live to fight another freaking day. And that's it. That's the way I see it. So what if you lose? Look, man, it's your career as a fighter is fight night. All right? Like Stormy says, every punch counts. I don't care if it's in a fight. I don't care if it's in a mismatch against a guy. If he hits you a couple times, that's you getting hit a couple times. I don't care if it's training. There's only so much you have in life. Life is fight night. What makes you think your career isn't? So you might as well go in there and make something out of it. Because if you have a successful career, your brand name is going to be worth something. So that way when you're 50 years old and retired, people are still buying your T-shirts. People are still buying your memorabilia. You know, and you're still making money because you made a legacy. But no, everybody just wants to think short term nowadays. But boxing is the only sport I could think of, in all honesty, where fighters request more than what they could prove they're worth in order to do what's already required of them. Fighting the best fighters is already a requirement. That's why you're doing it. Taking a risk, nobody forced you to become a boxer. Nobody told you, hey, you have to become a boxer. You have no choice. Nobody forced you and dragged you to the ring. Nobody dragged you to the boxing gym. Nobody told you that you have to pick professional boxing as your profession. Nobody forced you. So now that you made that decision, then you should do what's required of you and do your part to continue the success of the sport. Because if fighters in the past acted like you, we wouldn't have a fucking sport. You wouldn't have a sport to make money out of. And just like they left and paved the way for you, you got to pave the way for the future too. That is something you should be doing. How do you do that? You keep fans in the sport. You don't push them away. We're losing fans. Boxing is losing fans, people. People are leaving. They're saying, I don't want to deal with this no more. These guys don't fight each other. Why should I watch this? They're hurting the sport, and then they're demanding more money than fighters have ever made. It's not like they're leaving something good behind. Look, boxing's never been perfect, man. A lot of potholes have been left in the road, right? But the road was still paved. Sure, a lot of potholes, but now they're not even paving the road. Eventually, it's going to hit a dead end, and then nobody makes money in boxing. Because there's going to be no more fans and no one interested in watching anymore. Because there's only so many mismatches and so much crap people can take, no matter how much they love the sport. That's all I got.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that, D-Style. You could go back to the early 70s, late 60s, right? And you had martial arts tournaments with featured guys like Bill Superfoot Wallace and Chuck Norris and Mike Stone and Ed Parker and all of these wonderful martial artists, Ron Van Cleef. You know, these were real martial artists, and they fought in competitive tournaments and whatnot, championship matches. Now, there was not mixed martial arts back then, but those were real martial artists from their day, and they're considered legends today, right? But boxing still reigns supreme over those guys, no matter how lethal they were in hand-to-hand or foot-to-hand combat. Boxing ruled. How in the hell is MMA and UFC and all of that stuff surpassing boxing today? They're surpassing because these guys of today don't have what it's supposed to take to carry the sport forward. You mentioned about them, like the fighters in the past, if they took upon this type of mindset that these guys have, we wouldn't have a sport. You're absolutely correct. They're actually erasing the path of the future as we speak by stepping back and stepping off track to not go out and represent the sport and represent themselves and represent the legacy of what the sport means to drive the sport forward. They're out here trying to find ways to make money. If you want to hustle and make money, go hustle and make money. But this is a sport. Imagine football players who don't want to block, or guys who don't want to open up the holes for the running back to run in, or guys don't want to rush the quarterback. Huh? You don't pay me enough, so I'm not going to do it. What? If you don't get your big goofy ass down on that line and hit somebody, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's ridiculous watching the sport. Yeah, E. Wilson, Benny the Jet. Also, I wasn't trying to leave any names off, but I was just giving an example of those fighters from that era that were superior fighters of the guys of today. And guys today are paid better than they were paid then, but they don't measure up to those men. Those men in their 70s right now, in late 60s, can whoop these guys today. Some of them. But it's like, it's ridiculous. And we look at the sport of boxing, you got these characters out here. Ryan Garcia. This guy is such a diva or whatever. They need to put a skirt and some makeup on him and put him on a reality TV show. He don't belong in the sport of boxing. Get the hell out of here. You understand? It's like, and again, you got people like Oscar De La Hoya who helped this stuff manifest. Huh? It's you look around and this is severely depleted. The sport is like, it's having all of the air, the oxygen sucked out of it by all of this foolishness. And that's the only word that I can find for it. Foolishness. Because anybody who wants to support that or whatever, it's got to be a damn fool.
If I can add something really quick, in my old job, man, it's just some behind the scenes stuff that I knew. And when it came to HBO, the reason HBO, okay, got rid of boxing is the following, all right? AT&T purchased HBO, okay, when they acquired Time Warner anyway. There was a merger, as many people know. So they had new management. And you know what happened? You know, just like anything else, they start looking through everything, the line by lines. They're looking at the budget. And then they're thinking, oh, let's make this fight happen. Oh, but, well, this guy doesn't want to fight this guy unless you pay him this much. Oh, but this guy doesn't want that unless you pay him this. Okay, well, what do we make this fight happen? And then they realize, you know what they realized right away? This is too big of a fucking pain in the ass. We don't pay the Game of Thrones actors anywhere near that amount of money. And a show in Game of Thrones is 10 times the amount of viewers than that damn boxing fight's going to make. Like, who are these guys to be asking this amount of money? And then to be giving us these headaches. That's why they got rid of it. It was just too big. It was too big and too big of a pain in the ass to deal with. But and it's only a matter of time. Well, what do you think ESPN's going to figure out? You know what? Like, we make this deal with Top Rank, but we wanted to see like Crawford against another big name. And there's only so many mean machines out there that we're going to put on. There's only so many of these mismatches. You know, they're only getting 300,000 viewers. The Shakur Stevenson fight did about 600,000. These numbers are abysmal. This is ESPN. There's no competition. There's no other sport on. The UFC events are doing 1.1 million. Obviously, boxing is doing something wrong. That's all I got to say.
Oh, just to piggyback on what you were just saying, D-Style, and HBO, they can't just point fingers, because you point one finger out there, what you think is the problem, you still got about 3-4 fingers pointing back at yourself, because they stopped investing in domestic talent. That right there, they're the only neck that's in the noose of that problem. They started glorifying and building up these guys who weren't even from America, okay? And here they go, and what they have always hung their hats on have been the Latino fighters and the black fighters, up-and-coming talents that have proven themselves. The Hector Camachos, Evan Rosarios, Julio Cesar Chavez, Jose Luis Ramirez, all of those guys going back, Wilfredo Gomez, those guys coming into the fights, Salvador Sanchez, you know, these fighters, homegrown fighters, they would fight on network TV and then work their way to HBO cards. It was like HBO stopped acknowledging American talent. and just started reaching out over into the Eastern European pools and everything and pulling these fighters out there and telling you that they're better than Muhammad Ali or that they've never seen nothing like them since, Willie Pep or something like that. It's like, what? What are you talking about? They're better than Marvin Hagler. What? And then it's like you're watching these guys and you're looking at them and you're like, you're seeing them get touched up by low opposition. They still win, but you're like, man, if that was like Roy Jones hitting him, he'd be out of there. Of course he would. But that's not what they're trying to do. They're trying to sell you the fallacy of something that they're trying to create a narrative. They're trying to create this picture of some type of something else because they want that image for themselves. That's why they out of there too. Because they were trying to shovel shit down the throats of people who are real conscious boxing folk. I can't remember a fight on HBO's broadcast that was a good fight worth tuning into that people say, man, they shouldn't have had that on there. No. People say, man, that was a classic, that we wanted to see a rematch. We want to see this, that, and the other. This is what they wanted. They chose to start bringing this other riffraff into the medium of the sport and putting it on their air. That's why for a certain period of time, Showtime was better than HBO because they were putting on better fights with better talent. You could see Showtime had their show where it's like Showbox, young American talent fighting. Where was HBO's young American talent? Guys being groomed to follow in the footsteps of the aging fighters like the Bernard Hopkins and the Roy Joneses that were going to be leaving the sport. The Lennox Lewises. Where were the guys to replace them? They weren't there because they didn't invest. So they played a huge role in that themselves. Not just what I'm saying, but what you said too, D-Style, but the HBO really was cutting their own neck with that foolishness. Reggie, you got something? You've been quiet for a minute, bro.
Oh, shit, man, I sit back like shit is good, man. But no, y'all was absolutely cooking on that. But also with you both brought up some definite points, and like you added the point about HBO doing it to themselves, and I agree with that 1,000,000,000%. That's what I was saying in the comments. Great point on that one. They kind of self-sabotage themselves, but also what D-Style was saying is that when people go line item for line item, looking at how viable this is to what's the ultimate reasoning for being in business anyway, is to make sure the numbers are there, make sure a steady flow, make sure the economics make sense. And when they're going in there and they're seeing that fights ain't pulling in this, more money is going out. So you have more expenses than you have money coming in. And that's the way they were looking at boxing, but it was based on some of the decision making going on over there. And like you say, they weren't home grooming fighters, looking more towards the Eastern European fighters, which never caught wind here in America and has ultimately duped them. And almost you've seen them do that again, to where local networks got out the way of boxing. What is it? What we call it? National television or whatever, the free TV. The networks got away from that shit, and your only source of boxing at a long period of time was Showtime and HBO. And then now they come back into it, and they're running to the issue now of fighters acting like they shouldn't fight each other. They're demanding too much money, or this little dollar amount to step in the ring with another guy, and the opponent is demanding a certain dollar point before they step in the ring, and ultimately that creates the conflict to where even the fans are not there because there's no money to market this shit because they're paying too much out to the fighters. And there's no real promotion behind any of that. And I think that's where things have really messed up. And then the other thing, promoters don't promote anymore. They don't promote. So without promoters promoting, you're not seeing any marketing. You find out fights at the last damn second. So how are you attracting fans that come over to watch any of this stuff, and especially they're not going to watch nothing when the product is bad, and especially when the commentating is bad. You hear commentators, if they're favoring somebody, what they're speaking out doesn't match what you're watching. That kind of gives you a bad taste. And even with me, when I was following the sport, before I start getting in the habit of turning the volume off, they pushed me away from wanting to watch the sport. It would go on for a while where I wouldn't watch it because it's like this shit just became so distasteful, along with the performance and then the shit coming out of some of the commentators' mouths. But ultimately, they don't clean this shit up. All parties within the game, they can start setting boxing backwards. But also on that flip side with the UFC's running into its own set of problems. And now that issue comes down to what the fighters aren't being paid. So this shit, when things are at a little way off balance, it will create these issues to where at some point the shit's going to fall way, way off. And someone has to come in and find a way of fixing it. And that's what Al Heyman was good at. But now he's going to have to reinvent and figure shit out again because shit is changing once again.
You know, there's something else to be said about this HBO thing, too. I know that there are certain people who were behind the scenes in HBO for many years, and they started dying off. It's like Ross Greenberg producing the shows and a few other names, and forgive me if I don't remember them all, but some of these guys were dying off as early as like the early 90s and mid 90s. People who had been with HBO for a long time. And then I noticed like Larry Merchant had been with HBO since, BC. Okay. But the thing about it was he would talk a certain way and keep things under wraps. Now I'm beginning to realize it was after some of these people who produced their shows died off that Larry got a little more emboldened and began to say things that were representative of his personal feelings, and no one held him in check on it. And when you could sit ringside with someone who has a personal relationship with the sport, a former fighter like a Roy Jones Jr., a Sugar Ray Leonard, or a champion like George Foreman, and even the great trainer Emanuel Stewart, and Larry Merchant can cynically challenge their experience by saying something with his racist and prejudiced remarks on what they were witnessing in the ring by particular fighters, and the professional sitting next to him has to correct him and say, no, Larry, don't say that because these guys do XYZ, or they say one left hook on the chin will change your mind on that, Larry, or something like that, where they have to correct him because he's in his own personal feelings. And instead of the network removing his ass out of the mix like they should have done, the production began to go down and down and down. And the quality of their broadcast, you sitting at home in front of your TV and you want to throw a beer can at the TV because he's talking this crap. Okay? But you had people sitting next to him. You had Roy Jones. You had George Foreman. You had Emanuel Stewart sitting there correcting him all the time, almost every episode, where he's saying this cynical crap from a prejudiced standpoint because he ain't never been an athletic person in his life, ain't ever been able to do anything but sit up and talk and write, like the good nerd he was. And when they checked him on it, he ran amok, but the network wouldn't stand behind the quality of the broadcast. That was another aspect of why the programming went into the sewer. And nobody wants to talk about that. But I'll talk about it, just like when Deontay Wilder lost his fight to Tyson Fury. Here he comes out of the freaking graveyard somewhere because I thought he was dead and buried already. And he's like, I woke up with a smile on my face today. Mother, nobody cares that you woke up at all. But maybe your own family. But we wish you would have stayed hidden where you were because you ain't worth a damn. You out here helping ruin the sport. And there's people like you, like-minded, that are out there, okay, and they're poisoning the sport because people want to think of you as a credited source. You can put shit in a bag and put a label on it, and I'll call that credited, huh? But what's the real source? Someone's asshole.
So he did look like the Tales from the Crypt dude.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, Curtis Anderson says, when Saif Abraham left HBO, it was over. See, I knew there was a number of names of people. Certain people died, certain people went on it, but there were a number of people who were a huge part of that broadcast for a number of years. We're talking about decades. And some of those people died off. And they weren't replaced with quality personnel who could still hold that type of standard that they had enjoyed for many years. The fact that Larry Holmes could get on there and say Rocky Marciano couldn't carry my jockstrap and stuff like that in his dressing room after a loss or something like that. HBO was known for, it wasn't like, oh, Larry Holmes is talking bad on the network and he's cussing and swearing. No, what it was like, that was great theater for when a man lost his title and him airing out his thoughts or feelings right there. That's what was exclusive about HBO. It wasn't Larry Merchant's opinion about Larry Holmes, which he would interject at every opportunity that he could, or with Bernard Hopkins when he would say to Larry Merchant, Larry, don't be ignorant, saying these things. And then Larry wants to get the last word in, sitting before the air goes off and says, well, you know, Bernard is fighting these guys that are not worthy of being number one contenders, you know, and mandatories, but I hope one of them beats him. What? The man is contracted to fight on the network, and here you are actually airing a personal opinion on the fighter, the in-house fighter, just because he told you to shut your trap. And he told you in the proper way, don't be ignorant. You got mad because a black man sat up there and told you in your face in front of millions of viewers, don't be ignorant, which is what you've been the whole entire time. I know this conversation went to a certain place, but hey, that's the real deal. That's the real deal about HBO, you know.
On the real.
Bruce Gold says the Olympics won't be giving us any boxers for the next few years, and that was always a source of new talent. Absolutely. E. Woodson says, yep, Merchant slowly started to show his true colors. I remember him and Lampley weren't so bad at commentating. Makes you think that they were just wanting to be assholes that all that time. No, E. Woodson, it's just like I said, and Curtis Anderson mentioned that there were people who left the show. And so those guys, because they were long tenured, they were able to be more influential with their speak on air or whatever. But those people who had left, whether it was those who died off or those who moved on, they would hold them in check. Okay? They didn't have those little earpieces for nothing. So somebody will say, hey, you might want to steer away from that topic there, Larry. Go with something else. And he'll have to change up what he's going to say. But if you ain't got nobody talking to you in that earpiece, huh? And you ain't really got nothing happening up here in this airspace, anything can come up out of here in this dark place. Lawrence Williams says, Merchant said Buster Douglas looked beefy on the HBO doubleheader, Tyson versus Tillman, Foreman versus Rodriguez. That's why Buster versus Holyfield went to Showtime. Facts. Hey, Larry Merchant, he said a lot of things over the years, but those mid to late 90s, he really got bad. He got horrible. You know, you go back to the early 80s and mid 80s, he was tolerable, but when we went over into the 90s, man, it was like he fell off a cliff or something with what he had to offer. we have time to go on to another subject there. A D-Style, I wanted to ask you while we're on our air here, how did you decide to come up earlier with your show that you and G Funky did? I enjoyed that. I tuned in this afternoon and caught it just after you aired it, and I thought it was pretty cool about selecting your boxing movies. You there, D-Style? You're on mute if you're there.
No, I don't think the volume's coming through. I see. Oh, there he is.
D-Style. You might have to fall out and come back in, D-Style. Just try that. Just pop off and come back on. Just pop off and come back on. So, Reggie, in the meantime, while we get D-Style straightened out, did you get a chance to see that little show he did?
No, I didn't get to check it out because, man, I'm not a fan of boxing movies, man. I'm not a movie fan at all. I'm more to documentaries. Someone was asking me the other day if I seen the Ali movie, and I'm probably one of the few people on this planet that never ever watched it. And even with Rocky, I don't really remember Rocky like that, but I hear when I'm watching it live and people make reference to certain scenes, and then I may go watch that scene rather than watching a whole movie. I'm a documentary type person. I really ain't into films, especially when it's, I don't know, I just ain't never gotten to movies like that.
I just sent D-Style a text because I don't know that he can hear us. I'm asking him to pop off and come back on.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I hear you now.
Cool.
I had asked you a question, but I forgot the question that I had asked.
Sorry. He was asking how did he come up with the show that him and G-Funk put together about the ratings of the boxing films.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's actually just it was just spontaneous, to be honest with you. That's how I come up with most of the things I do. But
I enjoyed it though. That's why I was saying I thought that was pretty cool. You know, I caught it just after you guys uploaded, and I thought it was cool. I sat there and watched the whole program. That's why I left you a comment there. I thought that was cool because you know why? It's like it's refreshing. You know what I mean? It's just something different. It's refreshing. And I think that helps in these times of what we're dealing with the stalling of the sport and the sport slowly coming back and still not bringing what we would like to see and whatnot. And I figure when people are being creative like that, I like to give them credit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, we've usually on the Hispanic College and Panic show, we'll end the show with something that's not really current. So whether like we've done like our top 11 Mexican boxers of all time, or the four most influential Mexican fighters. It was like kind of a Mount Rushmore, but I called it a Mount Azteca. And then, of course, we had this. You know, we've done fights we wish we could have seen, or that didn't happen. That we wish could have been made. So I always kind of end the show with something like that. Then I do a poll so people could kind of vote on it and stuff like that.
Oh, so that was part of your Hispanics Causing Panic show?
Yes, it was a segment on it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I didn't catch it this week. That's why I was saying I didn't.
Okay.
So I didn't see the whole show this week. Yeah, I encourage you. Keep doing stuff like that, man. It's pretty cool. I always like fresh wrinkles, and I think that helps, and it goes a long way. And also, it helps when someone, even like myself, when you try to be creative, it's like you try to think of doing something that, not only is your own little niche or whatever, but it can just, like I said, be a new wrinkle Boxing, it's a lot of people think that the sport of boxing is dead and it's over with and stuff like that. It's down in the toilet and this and that. We are at a down point, but the sport is far from dead. I think there's a tremendous ceiling for improvement in the sport, and I think that we should all press and work toward that, because we got to hold these guys and accountable in what the presentation is. I mean, sometimes you have to clean house before you get things in order. You know what I mean? And that's kind of like what's happening with the sport of boxing. There's a few bad seeds out there that people have allowed to remain, but they need to be held accountable as well. When you get rid of guys like Ed Hearn and a few of the other names that I'm not just going to run off a laundry list, but I will put his now out there because I think he has been terrible for the sport of boxing in many different ways. Even if you want to talk about starting out apps, if you want to talk about getting fighters signed and making fights, if you want to talk about purse bids, if you want to talk about managing, the guy is a walking wreck. And he don't need to be anywhere near professional fighters. You guys are awfully quiet. Am I going it alone now?
No, you went out.
No, I
I
stopped.
thought it cut out for some reason.
No, I stopped. That was just a mic drop.
Gotcha. Yeah, man, look, speaking of movie, could you imagine, trying to make a movie about Ryan Garcia?
Oh, man.
What are you going to do? Talk about all the tweets he did, all the tweeting he did, and, him hitting the double M bag? That's his movie so far. That's all it is. That's the movie, right? You can't make a movie like this. A lot of these dudes, bro, they're already, like you said earlier, they're already in their late 20s, early 30s, and it just seems like they have like this incomplete career. There was a time where guys already like solidified themselves to be a future Hall of Famer or something, like kind of like Mayweather did. He was already pretty boy. Floyd at 130, 135. He was already he already had like a legacy intact. Like him or hate him at that point. I have enough criticisms after that, but still. Right now, these guys haven't done anything. A lot of them already near 30 years old. Caleb Plant's almost 30 years old, guys. And if we stop and think, like if tomorrow he dies, let me knock on wood. There's wood right here. But if he, God forbid, gets in a car crash and dies, what legacy did he leave behind? What legacy have these guys left behind if something, God forbid, happens? Because anything can happen. Anything. Like, no one's excused from, people say Father Time's undefeated. Death's undefeated. Death shows up on everybody's doorstep. You just don't know when. It'll come at any point. You know how many guys right now, mid-20s, late 20s, early 30s, mid-30s, have this incomplete legacy? You couldn't even make a movie about it. You can get the best directors out of Hollywood. They'll be like, I don't even know what to do about this. I don't even know what to make the movie about. This guy didn't do anything. A lot of these guys didn't do anything. They haven't done anything. And I don't even mean like achieve. Sometimes you don't make it to the mountaintop, but your story about trying to get to the mountaintop is a story in itself. These guys aren't even trying. They're tweeting. They're posting on Facebook and Instagram. And they're doing a lot of talking. That's what we're seeing right now,
Yeah. George Foreman ended his boxing career with a record of 76-5. He had 68 KOs, and he was knocked out one time himself, and that was by the greatest, Muhammad Ali. But this is the thing. When George Foreman fought his last fight of his first career, it was in March of 77. He came back in March of 87. So after a 10-year layoff, George came back and he fought all the way up until, from 87, he fought all the way up until 1997. So George was pretty much on par with his numbers. He knew what he was doing with his career. But what I wanted to say about that second career of his, which was a second career because he had over 30 fights in his second career, in his comeback. But he did it the right way. He was very gradual in his coming about. You know, he progressively fought better and better and better fighters until he challenged for the heavyweight championship of the world. Now, I'm saying all of that to say this. If this man came back at the age of 38, okay, to resume his boxing career, what's wrong with these guys? And he was busy. George fought several times a year. You know, he was busy. He was out there. These guys want to fight 7 months apart. You know, like you fight one fight and then you be inactive for another 7 months or so. So it's like longer than a year. Okay. So if they're cheating and doing PEDs and things like that, and they get caught and they get suspended, it's just at the time that they're not training or whatever, or supposed to be training, it's just more of the same for them. There is no restriction. There's no discipline out here in the sport today. And that sucks. And there's not even any leadership in trainers and coaches to say, hey, this is not the way to do it. Management? No. Everybody is sitting back waiting on paydays and waiting for this and waiting for that. It's like boxing is like a sport that is a ship that has no rudders. You know, it's just going in the water whichever way the waves carry it or whatever. You can't right it because there's no captain or nothing. It's like, really, what's going on with the sport, man? We got to get this together. We got to get it straightened out. We got to hold people accountable. We got to get people thrown out of the sport, you know. And it's not going to get better until some of those things begin to start happening. Reggie, what do you think?
I don't know where you was going. I was listening to it, but I don't know where you was going with it. I don't know how to respond to that.
No, I use George as an example because he had two careers. And in his second career, he was even more active than in his first career. When he came back at the age of 38, you know, in boxing, he really put on, he fought quality fighters. He fought more quality fighters in his second career than he did his first career. Because the three names that you could really remember that he fought in his first career are Frazier, Ali, and Norton. You know, and that's not to say those are the only good fighters he fought, because he fought Ron Lyle and he fought Chuvalo, but it's like those guys, you know, they were good fights, but not compared to like all the guys he ended up fighting when he came back. And so I was saying that these guys today, they're not even putting out that type of effort that George did at an advanced age. And it's kind of disgraceful. That's the point I guess I was trying to point out.
Yeah, but I was like, I still don't even know how to respond to that. I'm like, I don't know. I just don't know how to go piggyback off of that one.
Well, check it out. All right. I think, and it comes back to that Michael, and I know he's not a boxer, but I mean, you know, he's arguably the best basketball player of all time, Michael Jordan, you know, talking about guys, you know, being paid off potential and not what they actually do or have done. And right now, a lot of these fighters want to be compensated ahead of time before they accomplish anything. They want everybody to do all this investing in them. They want all these guarantees for them before they do anything. You know, and to me, that's a problem. Like, how about you do some first? How about you contribute to the sport first, and then you get your money? You're going to get your money, but you got to put in the work first. Is what you got to do. We have too many fighters wanting too much for doing nothing. That's just the truth. And I'm all, but like, believe me, I'm pro fighter as it gets. I want these guys to get paid, right? But I also want the sport to thrive. In order for the sport to thrive, these guys got to fight. And by fight, I don't mean hunting deers in cages, because that's what they're doing essentially when they're fighting outmatched opponents. I mean, Burchelt fighting a dude that's 3-3 with 1 no contest coming off a TKO loss is the equivalent, all right, of a McDonald's worker pissing on your food and giving it to you. I mean, that's pretty much what it is. All right. Oh, but they got to get paid. Yeah, but do they got to piss on my food? All right. Do they got to shit on me? Well, what the hell's going on here? Like, we're paying these guys, you know, to have these easy touches, and then they almost want to hold the sport at ransom so they could actually get in the ring with somebody with a damn pulse. Oh, you want me to get in the ring with him? You got to pay me. When you had a 38-year-old George Foreman come and basically get in the ring with everybody they put in front of him. And look, he already had a legacy. He was already a former heavyweight champion of the world. You could already do a movie about George Foreman. A lot of these guys, like I say, man, it's like an incomplete book. There's 2-3 pages, and there's hundreds of pages that are empty, blank, nothing noteworthy to talk about, to do future videos about. They're not even footnotes in the annals of history right now. And we're filled with these fighters right now that don't have any type of legacy. And to me, that's problematic. These guys are young. There's a saying my grandfather used to tell me, you know, and when I was young and he was like in his 70s, 80s, you know, he would always be like, hey, Eric. That's my name, by the way, Eric. How old are you? Right? He would tell me in Spanish. Because he would ask all his grandkids, oh, Grandpa, I'm 17. Man, when I was 17, man, I laughed at life. Man, life was easy. Like, I wish I was 17 again. You know how many of these fighters were like, God, man, I wish I was 22 years. Like, you don't think Chavez, like, I wish I was 25 years old right now in this sport.
Do you remember what Chavez was doing when he was 25? What was he doing to people, D-Style? Tell everybody out there listening what Chavez was doing when he was 25.
He was destroying guys, right?
Ending careers.
He was demolishing careers. Even look at Felix Tito Trinidad, bro. That dude was ending careers, right? He wasn't over here, oh, you got to pay me more to do this and that. You know when he finally asked for money? When it was him against De La Hoya. That was a big fight. It made sense.
Right.
These guys are asking for more money when, like, they haven't done shit. They haven't done anything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just kind of wanted to put that in there about Chavez. When he was 25, 24 years old, shit. Who was that guy, and forgive me, I don't remember his name, that his first network fight, he fought someone, it wasn't Ramirez, it was someone else before Ramirez. His first network fight in America. And Chavez beat the crap out of that guy. Can't remember his name. But I was like, that little dude is gonna be some mess because he was like what lightweight, junior lightweight or something like that when he first came on the scene.
Yeah. I don't remember to be. I mean, I was
right,
like,
but he was.
I don't think
Basically, that's what I was trying to say. You know, he was a monster, and was like looking to get in there for the next time around. Like, hey, get me in there in another month or two. You know, it's like guys were going to work. Curtis Anderson, salute to Kurt in the chat. He says Wilfredo Benitez was 17 when he became world champion. 17, that number, D-Style.
Wow. That might have been the Mario Martinez fight they're thinking about. I could be wrong. But.
Yeah, I can go back to either Scrapbook or Kurt, and maybe they'll know. But it was his first network fight. And, man, he beat the crap out of the guy he was put on there against. And he never looked back after that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking about the Mario Martinez just because I just remember like asking Chavez like oh, you beat a Martinez, and if your son beats a Martinez, I just remember something like that. But
Hey Reggie, you've been quiet for a minute. Did you have something you wanted to offer, either on what we're talking about or something else?
No, I was just listening in. Now, I'm listening in when topics are good and I ain't got nothing to add into it. I'll listen back, OG, because I didn't know how to respond to the George Foreman thing. I didn't know how to respond or add input to that.
Yeah, it's okay. And we're pretty much close to the end of the show now. Did you guys want to have some final words, D-Style? You want to leave us with some final words and thoughts on this evening's conversation, and let everybody know where they can follow you?
Well, just D-Style Boxing here on YouTube and D-Style Boxing on Twitter. You guys can follow me. I'm working on setting up a Facebook page and Instagram and stuff like that, but I don't have those yet. I have my personal Instagram, but I don't have my channel Instagram yet. But check it out, man. A healthy economy works with supply and demand. So the same goes with the sport. We have the sad thing is we have the supply. We have they may not be the best fighters we've ever seen, but we have fighters out there. We have guys that could thump. If they do the right matchmaking, we can have some great fights. Well, we have seen some, and shout out to Greer and, out there that, even though he came out with a loss, took it like a man and stuff like that. So not everything's negative. However, the vast majority is. And what we have to do as boxing fans is demand. And we have to demand that the best fight the best. We have to demand that we get the best matchups. And then it goes, even for the fighters you like, demand that they fight the best. It's what's best for the sport, and it's what's best for them too, for their legacy. So they leave something behind for the brand name. And for the young fighter right now that has dreams of one day being on ESPN or being on Fox Sports or on pay-per-view or whatever. Because there's a lot of young kids right now, all over the world, by the way. I mean, some turn professional at 15. Here in the States, we got a lot of amateurs that have a lot of dreams. Now, they're not going to be able to live that dream if fighters today don't keep paving the road that was paved for them. The reason sport of boxing even exists is because of the legends of the past. That's why it even exists. That's why they have this way of making money. Boxing is a sport where in one fight you can make hundreds of thousands, if not millions. And that's not something they did on their own. The existence of the sport is the reason they're able to do that. And we have to make sure we leave something for the future. For those working in the gym right now at a young age, all these teenagers that have dreams of one day getting there. And when they get there, they got to think about the ones that are coming behind them. So I want people to think bigger. When they think about boxing, have a bigger mindset. Don't look at the micro. Look at the macro picture. Look at everything. So while I understand, I don't blame fighters for asking for all the money. Well, you have to be objective and ask yourself, has this guy really done anything to be demanding this type of money? There are times where a fighter, does deserve to get paid and does deserve to stand his ground and get his money. Yes. But you have to accomplish something first. So be the demand, ask for the best fights, and that's going to make for a better sport for all of us and for future generations. And that's all I got to say.
And that was well said, and thank you for stopping by the channel this evening, bro. Appreciate your contribution, and you're always welcome here when you want to pop on, man. Appreciate what you have to offer. Reggie, go ahead and give us your final thoughts about this evening's show, and remind everybody where you at and what you got going on.
Right on, man. That was a great close right there, D-Styles. Some great shit. My thing, man, Bob Arum, you need to do a greater justice for the sport of boxing, being that you decide to come back into this game prematurely, without a plan, rushed into this thing. You need to go about, you and the team need to go about rethinking this thing, restructuring, reaching out to other fighters that are out there and putting on better competition. And that's what's greatly needed. ESPN needs to demand that. They must bring on greater bouts, and especially with the other fights on the card. There have to be a better level of competition that's being put on these cards. So Bob Arum, ESPN, stop making a joke out of this game and fix this. Fix what you're presenting to the fans. Give us better quality of what we're seeing inside of this game. Like so that's my thing is ESPN, Bob Arum, fix this dang fight thing that you're putting on. Hopefully, when you decide to do this fights on your damn farm, do not present us with the crap that we're seeing from Bob Arum and ESPN. Do not give us any of the crap. But outside of that, man, it was a good talk, man. Y'all was cooking, man. That's why I was sitting back just tuning in, listening to a lot, rather than like not having too much to offer because you guys are giving some great points on stuff. You guys can catch me boxing conversations with Reggie Owens. What is Instagram? Not too much boxing. I just be clowning on there. Sometimes dropping political stuff, which I also put on my page. But Reggie 76544, which is a Colleen's the zip code in Killeen. So it's Reggie with that 76544. And that's about it. I'm gonna keep doing my old fight reviews. I'm gonna keep doing that until it's over with. So I'm always do the old fight reviews, and as well as calling these fights put on by Bob Arum. Still calling them. It's still some boxing. Still want to see what's happening. Don't try to give too much criticism, but I'll still criticize it for what it's not. But that's what I'm doing. That's about it.
Yes, sir. And those are some mighty fine matches you've been calling, man. It's been great, and appreciate you for doing it, helping us to relive the experiences, and some for the first time. So that's why it's always good is, you give people, a new audience, a chance to see some of these classics. And it's always great when people can see and research for themselves. And I'm sure you have elevated your knowledge of the sport simply by reviewing those matches, seeing the different rules and regulations and different things that went and centered around the events and the personalities. So that gives you greater insight on what you're looking at. And you can also see, and I like to ask you on the spot right now, can't you see the difference in the temperament of men as they competed in the in the sport formerly, as opposed to what you're seeing today, having watched more of it, on your own, Haven't you seen the difference?
Oh yeah, most definitely.
See, and that's one of the reasons why some of us guys that's been around a while, we're so critical, because we could see the time when there was something different, and today you're not seeing that at all, and it's been replaced by superficial BS. I can remember Ron Lyle sitting up giving an interview talking about his fight with George Foreman, and he was talking about George Foreman like George Foreman was an opponent for him. He didn't talk about George Foreman like George Foreman was the former heavyweight champion of the world who was knocking everybody out and only lost to Ali. He was talking about Foreman as if he was just another stepping stone for him to get to where he was going. And you know what? When the bell rang for that fight to begin, he fought like it. You know what I'm saying? That's different, man. If you had someone like that today, and we do in today's time have people who are equivalent, they don't even want to face each other and can give you a dozen reasons why it's not necessary. Not that they don't want to do it, that it's not necessary. Isn't that some bullshit? But yeah, man, I want to thank everybody that came out this evening to listen to our broadcast. We touched on some things. We spoke passionately about some subjects, and that's what the chop session is all about. It's like we chop it up, and tonight was definitely one of those shows that we got a chance to do this. And I am so thankful and gracious that D-Style Boxing decided to hop on with us this evening to help carry on the conversation of the sport with his experience and insight. And my brother, Boxing Conversations with Reggie Owens, coming in as he does to help me out every week. We're really cooking with this as we talk about boxing here. The Friday Night Chop Session is a place where people can come, participate in the chat, and engage with us and have good, solid boxing talk. Even if it's not something that people agree upon, the subjects and everything that we cover, we don't just talk about the same old thing that you may have been hearing throughout the day, but we try to bring a different flavor with subject and content in a manner of which it'll give someone else to give a new take or a new angle on something. So that's what it's all about. Glad you guys had a chance to come out and check us out this evening. Hope you'll be back for us next week, 8 p.m. Central. This is Stormybman for my man Boxing Conversations with Reggie Owens and D-Style Boxing. We're about to sign off this evening and say good night to everyone. Have a great weekend and peace.